Nice record. Very nice record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wicked.
First off, yeah. Really lovely record. It's more blatantly beautiful, I think, than some others. But okay, that's...
No, that's probably because we had a more a more specific place we were aiming at than we've had for a while, which was not necessarily a fun thing. You know, if you've got a specific place you're aiming at and you're not getting there, that's not fun. For months on end.
And there's it's, I think, more of a synthesis or balance between man and machine.
Yeah, well, it's because the songs themselves were so formed, because we actually went and played them in front of people, and were almost at the point where we were bored of them when we came into the studio, which was a real drag, but it also meant that the endless normal routes me specifically usually would drag things down were restricted, because, you know, we sort of knew how, well, we knew when something was being placed on something that just didn't fit or whatever. The rule about being in the studios that we were working on these songs, normally I would find a blackboard, or, well, it was a blackboard, and I would fill the blackboard up with usually quite half-formed stuff, which would try the patience of everybody else. But because now we've got kids and stuff, you know, the idea of actually committing to be in the same room is such a big deal.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to make appointments.
Yes, and everybody has to agree to the appointments. Anyway, so it's like, well, that's a restriction. You know, we really can't. If we start getting into other stuff that right now we can't do that. You know, and I think we're aware that we'd been a bit lazy as well beforehand. A bit at times, not lazy, but sort of enjoying the process and not necessarily thinking about where you're headed, which I think is fine, you know.
Yeah.
But right now, at that point, I think it was probably mostly the fact that we had to focus so much on something. We had such a fixed idea of what it was. But there was less programming and stuff like that. We tried it.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. Oh, but we tried tortuously many. I mean, I can't think of an example. I mean, Videotape was the absolute. The last track, it was the absolute agony, because that went through every possible parameter. I had an absolute obsession that it should be like Surgeon, which is really hard, you know, post-rave trance track. And tried endlessly, you know, and to be fair to the others, they didn't, as they possibly should have done, kick me out of the room. But you know, we tried it and possibly we got something out of it, but probably not. But you know, and the other thing was that with that track was that Johnny was absolutely obsessed about the fact that the piano is in the wrong, you know, the piano's ahead. It's an eighth ahead of where the one is. The one is an eighth ahead. And he wanted to just structure the whole rhythm an eighth ahead. But it didn't, you know, so it was a constant argument about where the one was. And shifting it and blah, blah, blah. And then we ended up with something really, really bad, and, you know. And what happened was I left the, funnily enough, I left the studio for like most of a day and came back in the evening, and Johnny and Nigel had stripped everything away, and what we were left was what was on the record. So there you go.
Have you performed any of them live?
Yeah. All of them except Reckoner, which was like a last minute Oh, okay then. Yeah, we'll add that to the list because it was really good. And that's one of the few times where that was written on the spot, on the cuff, unexpected, sort of. That was like one of those occasions where you've come up with something and you're really into it, and you're not bored of it. You haven't had time to think about it or anything. It's just happening, and it's happening while you're in the studio, and you're coming up with lots of ideas that you don't really have time to tear apart. So it's just happening, and then you're 2-3 days later you're listening to it going, well, what? Where did that come from? And you're not sure if that's exactly what you meant at all, but it's far too late now because everybody's into it.
What do you think the live audience gets out of a show? Maybe it's distinct from what they hear on a recording. I'm thinking that audiences get all sorts of different things. I mean, I sense, okay, part of it is just being together.
Yeah, I think that's a massive thing. Being
together and all of them going, we're all together, we all like the same thing. There's one thing that we can all agree on here. and then the music comes on, and of course, with some bands it's a fist pumping thing, and but it's
collective will.
It's a collective thing, and I think, okay, I'm going to say, like with you guys, it's there's a kind of feel like it's a collective. The audience experience is a kind of collective introspection. They're all together, so it's social. But then when the music is more is a kind of an interior, at least for me. Maybe I'm just thinking about myself. Right. Which, to me, that's something different.
Is it?
No, I mean it's not like it doesn't exist. No. But
okay.
It's not going anywhere. Okay.
No, it is. No. I mean, because your original question was what do they get? What do people get from the live show relative to the record, isn't it? That's been the way. Well, I guess it's the collective will for it to happen, and there is, well, obviously the obvious thing is for the moment, when you've been the thing about the record is every it's very difficult to avoid that feeling of every note is going to be a note that gets scrutinized, or everything that's happening will be revalued or reassessed. Well, you don't have any of that with a live thing. You get back to the original energy of the original emotional energy, hopefully, of why you wrote what you wrote. It sounds that's kind of cliche there, isn't it? I suppose. But maybe it isn't going anywhere. Maybe you're right.
If that's what they're getting, which we didn't really figure out, but what are you guys giving them?
Wow.
We can skip over stuff.
No. What? I don't know. Sometimes you think, well, this is.
Well, like the way you just said it, it sounds like you're giving, the audience gets a kind of an emotional insight into where where the music came from in the first place. They sort of they're allowed into kind of the act of creation in a certain kind of way.
In a way, but then
I mean they don't make decisions about what goes on. But
I mean, I would assume, like with all the music that you love, it's a videotape, isn't it? It's a videotape to a certain period of your life or whatever, and so you're going through. there's that weird thing where time. There's a weird thing with time. If music is going, if live music is going well, you get lost in the time of it, and you are thinking you're in the present and you're in the past and you're in the future and you're da 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 da. Sometimes I have that, but you get all your energy and stuff from them. You know, I mean, you know, I'm sure you know, when you go on stage and you get that, it can be one person in the audience. It can literally be one person in the audience who absolutely wants it to go wrong, and it will affect what happens. You know,
then you just go, okay, play to the one who wants it to go right.
Yeah.
Find the other one. Yeah.
Escort the other one from the alert security. So what you're giving is what are you giving? You're just giving. I don't know. It's a show. You know, you're doing a show. But every now and again, when you're playing, and it is every now and again, you'll get those whoosh things that come through. You know, but that's it. You know, it's never sort of.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than, you know, say going on tour and things are going really well, and then people's expectations start going up and blah blah blah, and then you start to feel that pressure to have the whooshes happen, and then it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Then you're stuffed.
And sometimes it doesn't. It only takes that minute or second or instant for that to happen to confirm that kind of yes. That kind of transcendent whatever connection thing that can happen. Now we can move on.
Yeah, but
it's there.
The temptation is just to grab hold of it and go, come on. It's gone. But then when you're recording, you see the interesting thing is those and it's a collection of those whooshes.
Because of what you did, this record didn't, in a traditional sense, it wasn't like advance copies going out to press, and
it was the way that we termed it it was a leak date. You know, every record we done, the last, including my one, every record, the last 4 records have been leaked. So the idea was like, well, leak it then.
Yeah. So. Does that change what Steve and that those kind of people do? Because before they would say, "Oh no, there's a previously there'd be a release date," and then you'd say, "No, then we have to put things out before that." And
and then you ring up and say, "Did you like it? What do you think?"
Yeah. Would you like to talk to the band about it?
And there's 3 months in advance. Would you like to do some photos for this magazine?
Yes.
And maybe this journalist has heard it and blah, 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 blah. And then all these silly games go. And
now is that mainly about the charts?
Yeah, as you know, Chris and Bryce have been saying to the record company for years before this. You know, it does us no good because we don't cross over. We don't slip off the tracks onto somebody else's tracks. So it's no good to us, you know. But the main thing wasn't that. The main thing was that there's all this history. There's all this bollocks, as one would call it. And it was just trying to avoid all that. Avoid all the sort of stupid... mainly, as well as the history thing, whoever gets in first with the reviews, the nature of the way it works these days is because there's so much paper to fill, or digital paper to fill. Whoever writes the first few things get cut and pasted. Literally, you can then read them. Not that I do, but apparently they get cut and pasted. So whoever's opinion gets in first has all that power, which is, especially for someone like us, for a band like us, that's totally the luck of the draw, whether that person is into us or not. And it just seems wildly unfair for that to happen, I think. So there's all that stuff. but also
so this bypasses.
in a
all
way,
that,
yeah.
in a
But
way.
in a way, but you know, like I said initially, it was like we'd had enough of the record being leaked anyway, and you know these things being completely out of our control, and playing the games, magazines, and all that sort of stuff. Suddenly, just and that thrill, sort of the old John Lennon thrill of sort of literally we mastered it. We took a while to figure out how to finish the mastering and so on. We mastered it, and 2 days after we mastered it, it was on the site being down, you know, pre-ordered. No, it was being pre-ordered, and we were still frantically mastering it. So you know, it was that was just it was a really exciting few weeks to sort of have that direct connection. You know, I didn't really think much beyond that, really.
That works for you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
like me, I hear there's something new out there. I'll just go and buy it without like poking around, going, "Wow, what do the reviews say?" Is it
No,
good?
absolutely, yeah.
With a lot of pop artists, it's people want to hear the single and all that sort of thing. It's a different sort of thing. I should try and talk to people in kind of vastly different situations.
Yeah, because the only reason that we could even get away with this, the only reason anyone would even give a shit, is the fact that we'd actually gone through the whole mill of the business in the first place to have have enough people interested to be able to say that in the first place, and people think, "Oh, that's interesting. What's that about?" And it's not supposed to be a model for anything else. It was simply a response to a situation. We're out of contract. We've spent a huge amount of money on this server. We have our own studio. What the hell else would we do? You know, this is the obvious thing to do.
Are servers really expensive?
It
I
is
just have a
once-
small one in my office.
I don't know. Apparently, yeah. I mean, it depends. Well,
In order to handle that kind of load.
yeah, when you're doing the down, well, we actually had to parcel that out in the end. The actual physical downloading stuff, and even with this server, it still went down on the first day, and then a few days afterwards as well, just from the level of traffic going through it and stuff. So it's a bit of an ongoing thing, you know. Now we're trying to do our own. The idea is to have our own TV channel essentially off our website, which most of the time it's just an annoying test card which we'll probably come up with and change every now and again. But every time, you know, but we only go on 20 minutes.
When and if there is things, then
20
that
minutes
will be
beforehand, or half an hour or whatever. Oh, we're going to go on and play this song we've written or whatever. What a great idea, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
But it only works for us because of where we are.
There are a few bands I know that are now just getting started and trying to figure out what do we do?
Well, you don't sign a huge record contract, and which first and foremost strips you of all your digital rights, so that when you do sell something on iTunes, you get absolutely zero. That would be the first priority.
Yeah.
The second would be, I don't know, but I certainly what the status quo, or however one would call it, seems to be going down in all respects.
It is true. If there's a band or a musician or somebody who is coming out with something new, it spreads so quickly now. And I don't even know how it happens. I leaf through magazines and newspapers, and if there's something interesting, I'll rip the page out or write it down, and then I'll go online and order it or whatever. It's amazing how a lot of that, I think, for emerging bands, to some extent, the audience starts to find the band or find the artist that they like, and then
there's obviously the problem with saturation, though, isn't there? But then that, to me, that's where radio always is supposed to come in, isn't it? Because
to act as a filter, or let you hear it.
To let you hear things there in their entirety to begin with, because you know when you're like when you've got your 30-second preview, it's fairly useless. but also someone who may have like the same ideas as you know, like going into the record shop and asking for this record, and the guy then draws out a whole other list, that sort of thing. I mean, they do that a bit, don't they? I mean, there's a couple of shops I used, like, you know, net shops to download stuff, and it is quite handy when they say, you know, that silly thing when they say other people have bought this and this and this.
Yeah.
That's quite good too. Yeah, I don't see that a downside at all to big record companies not having access to new artists, because they have no idea what to do with them now anyway.
Yeah.
I just
should be a load off their minds.
Well, yeah. Exactly. But it is a shame that as you say, I don't know how, if you are an emerging artist, it must be quite frightening at the moment, I guess. Maybe not.
Well, I get out fairly regularly, and occasionally I'll go to see some new performer, singer, whatever that I've heard about, and I think, well, maybe it's my age, but I think nobody's heard of this person, and I'll walk in and the room's full.
Oh right.
And I go, how did all these people hear about this? This person is not on the radio. Isn't making TV appearances or conventional press or whatever. I thought, how does this happen? It must be all online kind of things. But there's the performance thing too, that I think people like, the kind of thing of bringing the community together, bring the people with the kind of similar interests together, and an opportunity to do that is something not to be missed.
I think that electronica really suffered from that. When it was when it had its real sort of strength. Well, I mean, I guess in a way it doesn't, but it's sort of moved into different areas now. But that was the fact that there wasn't really the performance thing was a shame, really, because in terms of sort of purely on a sort of maybe technical or aesthetic point of view, you know, what a lot of people like Oteka are doing is just completely out there in terms of their philosophy on music and stuff, and is to be massively admired for that. You know, it's bravery, but there's this whole sort of thing with the electronica thing of pulling back whenever the connection with the audience is a really odd one. You know, the sort of and I think that's as much to do with the fact that there's not that standing in a room sharing that music in the same way as you do when you're physically having to play it. You know, not that I'm saying one is more noble than the other. I don't think it is.
Yeah. In the months to come, so will you have your own marketing company?
No, because it starts to go a little bit more traditional, really. And you know, when we first came up with the idea, we weren't going to do a normal physical version of CD at all. And after a while, it was like, well, that's just snobbery. You know, that's asking for trouble, and B, it's snobbery.
May as well be vinyl only.
Well, yeah. And so yeah, you kind of have to do that route a bit, really. So yeah, they're talking about like putting it on the radio and all that sort of thing. I don't know. I guess that's normal.
Is that one stopping? No, it's still going round.
Is it? Oh, you see, only when you picked it up, though.
This is the one I use for writing.
No, on a dictaphone?
Yeah, I'll improvise or come up with a melody or something and sing it into this.
You don't use that one? But then you can sample it.
Then I can use it, yeah. I think I like the fact that it's so bad.
Yeah, you can't use it.
I can't use it, so I have to kind of...
Yeah.
I have to either learn it and make it and see if it's worth pursuing.
Fair enough.
the thing I read on was that in the Guardian or something?
Well, you don't want to read that.
Yeah, okay. It was in said the average.
They're making it up.
They're making it up.
I mean, whatever they get, we've not released any figures on any of it.
Oh, so they're making it up.
They're making it up.
They're totally making it up.
Yeah. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. I'm supposed
No.
to check with the authorities.
Yeah, okay. From what I've read, it seems that the audience, your audience, of course, is not only do they trust that it's going to be, they're going to get something for their money that they like.
The first 2 weeks of the pre-orders, yeah.
But they do. But they feel that some of them anyway feel that if they pay something, it's kind of a show of faith in and trust, and it's kind of a kind of human thing. Like if I trust you not to hit me, will you hit me?
If I ask you nicely.
Don't hit me.
Yeah.
Will you then hit me even though you can? No.
Yeah. Yep.
And a lot of people won't whatever they won't steal from you or hit you or do anything.
That was Chris's idea, and there.
Mm-hmm.
And we all thought it was balmy. Basically, and literally, as we were writing, as we were putting up the site and stuff, we were still saying, "Are you sure about this?" But it was really good because it sort of released us from something. I don't exactly, released us from the pressure of thinking about it in a certain way. And people took it as what it was meant, It wasn't sort of a nihilistic, music's not worth anything at all. It was the total opposite. But maybe that's just the nature of, as you say, people having a little faith in what we were doing, which in itself was an extremely nice little ego boost, which after being in the studio for a very long time is always nice.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When you absolutely hate everything you do, well, you don't. By the end of it, you're all right, but, there is that process.
Mm-hmm. I know. Hate it one day and love it the next.
Yeah.
Cliff Richards.
Yeah, Cliff Richards, no, he's doing it, but
the price will go down based on pre-orders.
He's doing, this is through EMI, please note. Anyway, he is doing it, but they take like an average price once people have put in their thing, and that's then what people are going to pay, which is a little bit like, well, I'd like to be the person doing the average, because there's a lot of ways you can do averages. It's kind of open to abuse, somewhat. I don't know, I don't get it at all. I think it's deeply ironic that the CMI doing it now.
I started asking myself, I still ask myself all the time, why do these things called albums?
Why make me, yes.
Why, yeah. The answer I came up with was, sometimes it's artistically viable. It's not just a random collection of songs. Sometimes, kind of unconsciously or intuitively, they have a common thread together, even if it's not obvious. Maybe it's just because everybody's thinking musically in the same way for those couple of months. And then...
or years.
Yeah, or however long it takes. And other times it's... sometimes there's an obvious records with story threads or themes.
Remaining like being my template for that, yeah.
Probably the reason it's a little hard to break away from that completely is that it makes just obvious financial sense if you're getting a band together into the studio, it makes more sense to do more than one song at a time once you've got everybody there. And it makes more sense if you're going to all the effort of performing doing whatever else is going on. If there's a kind of bundle.
Yeah, but the other thing is that bundle can make the songs themselves can what's the word? Not exemplify. The songs themselves can amplify each other if
Yes.
you put them in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know about you, but with us lot, it's always been the case where it's very difficult making the record, it's extremely difficult mixing it, and then it's knives out, weapons out, kill to the death, every trick you could possibly know in the book, every emotional blackmail, everything, that you can possibly do to get your way in the playlist at the end of it. Because that's when things get really fraught,
Mm-hmm.
because people have real emotional attachments to things and blah blah, and you discover what it is you've done as well.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. One thing kind of tells you about the next one, or sets up or destroys the one.
But if you can get through that, and this time was bloody awful, you do end up with this thing, because if you get it wrong, one thing in the middle will negate all this work. Well, that's a bit extreme, but it can do. It can just ruin the flow of where you're, where you've been headed. But the point is, you have to be able to sit back just enough to tolerate the concept that possibly someone else might possibly know something about it you don't. So that's the other reason to make albums. Maybe it's the sonata form of our time, and you just have to accept the fact that that's just the way it is, Captain. But we did toy with it. I mean, I've always toyed with the idea of, if it's a CD, it's 70 blah 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 minutes, whatever it is. You should do what some of the Electronica guys do and absolutely fill it up.
Oh, every possible second that you can.
Yeah, so but it's too long.
It is too
And
long.
anyway, what idiot thought of 70 minutes being a good time to... That's too long for anything. You certainly can't sit in a maths lesson for 70 minutes. In straight, that way.
So you've gone back to a more manageable length.
That was a very conscious decision.
Yeah, that someone can actually sit and listen. Stand and listen, walk and listen. Well, yes, it's true. I agree with that. Once you pass a certain mark, it's kind of like, now this is really taking up too much of my day.
Someone's knees twitching while they're listening to it, and they've looked at their watch, and you stopped.
Do you know more or less where your income comes from? All right, no, I'll be more clear. I'll be more clear. Like from like for me, it's probably very little from actual music or record sales. I make a little bit on touring, and I make probably the most from licensing stuff.
Oh, really?
Not to commercials. I license to
Yeah.
films and television shows and
All right.
that sort of thing.
I think we make some doing that. I don't know how really interested. We go through phases where sometimes film companies are.
And other times I won't.
Yeah.
And I know it changes for different people. Some people do their overhead for their live performances is really low, and so they make a lot on that, and they don't make it. They don't worry about anything else.
No, we always go into touring saying, this time we're not going to spend the money. This time we're going to do it stripped down. And then but we do need this keyboard and really these lights particularly blah blah blah. But we're having to. Anyway, but at the moment, the way it goes is that we make money principally from touring. That's how we make money, which is a hard one for me to reconcile because I don't like all the energy consumption, the travel, all it's an ecological disaster. Traveling, touring. So.
Well, there are the biodiesel buses and all that.
Yeah, it depends where you get your biodiesel from.
Yeah.
There's ways to minimise it, but we did this thing recently, one of those carbon footprint things, where they assessed the last period of touring they did, and they said, tried to work out where the biggest problems were. And the biggest problem, obviously, was the travelling to the shows. Everybody travelling to the shows, including us, obviously.
Oh, you mean the audience? The
Yeah.
audience?
Yeah. Which is like...
Not you
well,
guys, but...
obviously us, but it goes like that, you know, the lighting, audience.
Wow.
Just simply because of that's how, especially in the US, but
They all
also
drive, yeah.
everybody drives.
Yeah, yeah.
So everybody's driving, not necessarily sharing cars. So it's like, how the hell are we going to address that?
Yeah, yeah.
So the idea is that, you know, we play in municipal places with some form of transport system alternative to cars, which is there if you can persuade people to use it, blah blah blah, and minimise no flying equipment, shipping everything. We can't be shipped though. But the most ecological way of doing it is to live in one of the crates going over. It is, honestly. That's because if you go on the Queen Mary or something, that's worse than flying.
Wow.
Yeah, because they go so fast and they're so huge. Am I getting off the point a bit here?
No, it's fine.
So flying is kind of your only option unless you are prepared to spend 2 weeks, is it? I think on one of those freighters, basically.
Yeah.
Either that or you hire one of those gym palaces, as they call them. You know, the glamorous yachts, which go considerably slower and are smaller than Queen Mary and shit.
Oh, you mean like a wind power?
No. Like one of the, you know, like heads of Microsoft might that sort of thing. But you can do that, but again, that takes 10 days to 2 weeks or something, and it's a quite small boat on the Atlantic. So anyway, that's not the point. So touring is our principal source of revenue. But records.
But now with what you've just done, I don't know how much the server cost.
No,
but I would imagine
money out of it.
Yeah, I would imagine you make money out of it.
More money, like in terms of the digital thing, we've made more money out of what we've done so far in the digital world and the digital ownership of this record than we've done out of all the other Radiohead records put together forever, in terms of digital, in terms of anything on the net, you know, and that's nuts. But it's partly down to the fact that EMI weren't giving us any money for it. I mean, the contracts, you know, all the contracts signed in a certain era have none of that stuff in. I mean, that's why there's the writer's strike in the US.
Yeah, because
it's exactly the same thing.
They won't break it out and they won't let you keep it.
Yeah, but you still get money from like publishing as well. From
that's
that.
right. Yeah,
that's the other big one.
That's true. That's a big part of my income as well.
You imagine the look on our publishers' faces when we turned around and said, "We've got this great idea. We're going to give it away." Is that all right? And they've been amazing. They've sort of totally gone along with it. So there you go.
What is music? What does music do for people? What do people get from it? What's it for? That's the thing that's being exchanged.
Yeah.
Not all the other stuff. The other stuff is maybe the shopping cart that holds some of it sometimes.
A means to an end.
Yeah, it's a means to an end. It's a delivery or delivery
it's
system.
It's a delivery service.
All
yes,
that
exactly.
stuff. But the thing that's valuable to you is so intangible, but so important to you. I mean, as someone who likes music.
Yeah.
And part of that is, or I'm giving my own answer. Part of that for me is it's a kind of an odd mixture. It's like when you listen as an individual, then the music evokes or makes connections in your head, neural connections or emotional or whatever. It does that you feel are unique to you. And
Yeah.
it's doing
It
something.
opens something using its maths or whatever. It opens something in you that needs to be opened, and when it is opened, then your consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, changes just enough for you to be able to see beyond your four walls, sort of thing. Like thinking of that Murakami book, I can't remember the name of, where there's a hole in the wall where the guy can go through and come back. That's how it is. You're able to get out of yourself, or rather the place you live in or your situation becomes something wider for a brief moment. You don't feel trapped. I mean, the worst periods in your life, for me, the worst periods is when you can't find any music you like for say like a year or so, a year and a half, and you're like, shit, I need something new. I need to. It's okay to go back to old stuff, but in a way, you're not being opened up.
Yeah.
It's good to go back to old stuff, but you can't. You have to have that, and it's not just being a musician. You have to have that excitement of I found something that says something, boom, boom, and it happens far quicker than it does in art. I think art it's a difficult one, because unless you it's not something you can repeat in a magazine, it's not something you can multiply digitally in a very effective way. It's about a situation where it is, or however your relationship to it. Whereas music is very personal, very easy to pick up, very easy to carry around. Do you ever do that thing where do you listen to music on headphones when you're walking around?
Yeah, not all the time, but sometimes.
See, I don't do that, but whenever I do, it's like, wow. I find it actually too. I'm worried I'm going to bump into somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do it that often when I'm walking on the street, but if I'm in a train or I go running on the kind of a path, and
I can't do it when I'm running. I lose my rhythm. I'll go in whatever rhythm is that is. Now be careful what you put on. Nothing over 120 BPM, please.
But okay, so that is part of what people will pay for.
I guess so.
People will pay to have that.
The fact they have it,
to have that experience.
Yeah,
that has a value, and but it's fairly intangible. And then I think the other thing is the social aspect, not just of getting together at concerts. I mean, that's one thing, but also the fact that you create a community with music by talking about it with your friends, by passing it over, making a copy and handing it to your friends. You've established a relationship where now the implication is they're obliged now to give you something.
Yeah.
If you give them some music and they like it, now they're obliged to give you some music. Or at least that's the way. Kind of way it works with me. That I feel like, okay, now you have to kind of think of what they might like that they don't have, and you have to. And so you've established this very tight, very intimate kind of connection between friends.
Well, I was just thinking while you're saying that, how then does a major record company get their hands...
Get into that.
Yeah. And it makes me think of that old book, of the No Logo book, where Naomi Klein was describing how the Nike people pay guys on the street to get down with the kids, and I don't know, but I know for a fact that major record labels do the same thing. No one's ever really managed to explain to me exactly how. I mean, do they lurk around in the discussion boards and have you heard the new? Maybe they do. It's really weird. Anyway, but how does that figure and all that? I don't see. And then I was thinking about that Johnny Cash film, for example, when in that era of the majors, where Johnny Cash walks in and says, I want to do a live record in a prison, and they all think he's bonkers or whatever. But yet at the same time, Columbia during that era was able to somehow understand what kids wanted and give it to them. Whereas now, I think there's a lack of understanding of how. I don't know. I mean, that's really judgmental. That's not really true. But it's nothing to do with the companies themselves. It's just possibly. I guess what you're saying, like the value of music or not, is it's not about who's ripping off who.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about legal injunctions, and it's not about DRM and all that sort of stuff. It's about whether it affects you or not.
Yeah.
And why would you worry about an artist or a company going after people copying their music if the music itself is not valued? If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're valuing the delivery system as opposed to the relationship and the emotional thing that
you're valuing the company or the interests of the artist rather than the music itself.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we've always been quite naive, really. That lot in there, especially with this whole thing. We don't have any alternative to doing this, really. It's the only obvious thing to do. I guess if people aren't going to care, then they're not going to care. I mean, it's us choosing to go with a major record company or whatever. It doesn't really matter. If people don't care about the music anymore, they don't care about the music anymore. They'll go elsewhere.
Have you been with them for a long time?
From the start. But you still get excited about music, presumably, all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Do you get excited about it when you go and see it live, or do you get excited about the records?
Both. It depends. Some things are maybe marginally better live and then other things. Yeah, I've gone to see other things where I go, this person should stick to
not talk.
not
Thanks,
perform.
guy.
This person should
No.
not perform. Whatever it is. I mean,
and what about your because you've got like that massive library of Brazilian music, haven't you? Essentially.
Yeah, it's just stuff that I'm friends.
Because Ed's a massive fan of that sort of Brazilian stuff, whatever. He says you're a bit of an expert, apparently.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I got into it a while ago, and then became kind of obsessive about finding out more. I heard some stuff. I guess it was in the mid to late '80s, somewhere in there. That it wasn't all new things, but it was musically. I could hear, even though I didn't know what all the words were, I could hear this real openness. That they were songs, but they weren't musically. They weren't in any particular. I mean, they sometimes had Brazilian rhythms, but not all of them. And they seemed to incorporate anything that the artist felt like incorporating, or
no obligation to.
Yeah. And yet you could sense that these were. They were songs that really got inside of you, and the music was just something you wanted to listen to. At least I did. But I sensed a real kind of, from some of the artists, a real kind of freedom to kind of work within a song form, but kind of push it around and not stick to any particular sound or rules or whatever. And I thought, wow, we seem really conservative compared to this. At least maybe what I was hearing at that time. What was it? What was immediately around me just seemed.
Was it what initially turned it on to you with the rhythm aspect of it, but not?
I liked that. I mean, I liked.
Yeah, because I can imagine that, obviously.
Yeah, I liked that it has this kind of swing, very sensuous sound. A lot of it, but yeah, I think it was also I could sense a lot of heart, but also a lot of intelligence behind a lot of it. That I thought, wow, that's how I think pop music should be.
Yeah, well,
I thought that's occasionally we get it, but they're getting a lot of it right there.
Yeah.
And so I kind of dug deeper, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like, and there was a few things that I just really stuck with and liked a lot. I mean, it's a huge country, so I guess big enough so they can nurture artists and support artists who kind of find their own way and they come up with something unusual. They don't have to have kind of pop singles all the time.
It's interesting you talk about the song form though, because my default, for me personally, my default setting is to endlessly. The song element is either the absolute first thing, blah blah blah, or the last thing considered. So I can spend, well, I wouldn't say months, but weeks at a time assembling things or trying experiments without considering. I can hear where subconsciously I know where I'm going to put the voice, but I haven't done it. But I'll work with the band or whatever, and I'll be working through this stuff, and they're going, "What the fuck's going on?" Because because I'm not made that connection, so they're like, "Well, okay, well, yeah, we'll try this. Sure, we'll go with this." But I've not laid the vocal down, so everyone's a bit sort of, "What the hell is going on?" And I only really realised that might actually be an issue, a problem when we did the Eraser, where I had basically a bunch of sketched bits of cut up stuff, and occasionally, I was into it and I could see where the possibilities were going, but I was playing it to Nigel, and Nigel just blank face going. And then I went away going really cross, and I thought, okay, well, I'll make it bloody obvious. So I'd cut the bits that I thought were the good bits, assemble them up, and do a sketch of a vocal on top. And then suddenly he's jumping up and down and going, "Wow, this is great!" Da da da. Oh, okay.
You need that as a way in, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's it. And then I found this Robert White quote in Wire a few weeks ago, where he was talking about something to do with to him, unfortunately, a lot of music will always end up falling down a particular route and end up not being exactly wallpaper. I can't remember how he describes it, but especially when you're experimenting with techniques or whatever, programming or using different rhythms or whatever, arguing about what instruments should go together, I don't know. It ends up being nonsensical after a while, unless you've done unless the human being is sat in the middle going, "I'm here," and that's pop music. That's it. I mean, you don't really get many pop instrumentals. Yeah. Except for na 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 19 or you don't. It doesn't happen. And what I was going to say was, I'm curious. Like, do you do that? Do you ever just get into a piece of music for ages and ages and don't bother with the vocal, and then you'll do it, or do you always start with the vocal?
No, I don't always start. I often start with the music and go work with it for quite a bit, and then I'll put a vocal on, but not words, just singing syllables or whatever, and from that I can kind of. Then I can see, okay, now I'm seeing the structure. Yeah. Now I'm seeing where this is going to be this bit, this is going to be this bit, this is going to be that, and that.
That's not going to work that bit there.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take that out.
But do you, when you lay down the guide, whatever, with these half-form words, what happens to me? I get into a mad panic, because I assume that the half-form words have the sounds I need for the final words.
Oh, right.
So then
I do that as well. That I assume that if it's a hard O sound or that sound is conveying the emotion that needs to be conveyed at that point in the song.
But what if you can't get
Yeah,
the words to fit
That's
it?
right. You have to find a word to fit there that sounds like it just
Yeah.
naturally occurred there.
Whereas, so it makes you sort of think, well, maybe you should do that. Neil, for me, makes you think, well, when you're in that moment, you're putting down, I'm just putting down the guide. Maybe you should, maybe that's the point where you go, because I have such trouble then trying to piece together what it should be after I've done the guide. It's a nightmare, because I get attached to the guide immediately because it's got those sounds that are needed or whatever. And then I read that thing that Neil Young says he never goes back and rewrites. He'll write
Wow.
the words, he never goes back and rewrites.
He just assumes that the kind of first intuitive thing is that was the.
And it's like, that explains loads. Because sometimes things come out and you're like Needle and the Damage Done. There's no way you could have sat down and rewrote that. You know what I mean? It had to be like that.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder. What? Because I sometimes worry, am I being lazy, at that particular moment? Because maybe that moment's a really, really rare thing. And then you're trying to get back to it.